Hey everybody, and welcome to Rabb1t's Ramblings, podcast 355. This time I have a cold, so I probably sound pretty funny. My nose is plugged up, but it's also sniffly and sneezy, so things are kind of crazy. But this time I'll be talking about Outriders, and hopefully you'll enjoy the show. So I finished the main story of Outriders in about 25 to 30 hours, not counting repeating any missions that I want to do that are in the quest line. There are still lots of side missions to do. Outriders is a third-person shooter. I would describe it as something close to mixing Mass Effect with Diablo. There is a lot of shooting, but there is very definitely a story that they are telling in the single-player campaign, but along the way, you will collect tons and tons of different loot with different mods, which will vary how your special powers and abilities work. So there is quite a lot to customize and tweak. Character creation and customization is a bit disappointing, but it's much easier on the devs if they don't have to worry about different body sizes or different measurements of the character. Really, all you're customizing is their face, and honestly, unless you turn the helmet off, nobody's even going to notice that your face is different. And really, in all honesty, compared to other shooters, especially in the sci-fi shooter genre, I would say there's probably a lot more customization than there is not compared to that. Because I remember in a certain shooter, when I created my character, there was like 3 head types and like 6 different hairs, and like that was it. And Outriders is a lot more customizable than that, but a lot of it kind of doesn't matter a whole lot. You can have characters that look very different, but again, a lot of the time when you're out shooting, you're just going to have your helmet on, you won't see them. You will see them in cutscenes, then it would kind of matter. So I guess it would be nice to see more, but it's certainly not critical. Loot is super fun. You are always adapting what you use and how you play based on what loot you have. You will have your preferred build for sure, but there is enough in terms of abilities and weapon types that you might not consider ideal, but are interesting enough to encourage you to check them out. You can, however, tweak things that you do like by boosting stats, item level, or even one of the perks. Some items will have 2 perks on them. Once you change one, you can't change the other one. It locks that one in place. So searching for that quote-unquote god roll and making something even better than it already is totally viable. Also, these mods and perks that you get, you learn by disassembling an item. So in order to get those for crafting, you will need to get an item and then take it apart. And so there's quite a lot of cycling through loot as you level up through the game. But fear not, it is a level-based game, and as you level, you will change gear pretty quickly. While it is a cover-based game, a lot of the cover is destructible, which is both good and bad depending on if you are the one losing cover or the one destroying it. Also, while there is cover, you probably don't want to use it a whole lot. The game does encourage you to get in there and fight and kill things, because the way you recover health is by killing things, unless you have a specific thing called Weapon Leech, which gets you a little bit of health as you do damage. So you do want to pretty much not be in cover unless you're very close to dying or facing some really horrible odds. As you level up, you will gain points that allow you to tweak your character, and there are pretty much 3 skill branch trees that you have per class, but you don't have to go straight down one tree. Like my current favorite build is based on Devastator, and I start in the middle tree and I go a little bit in, and then I go up to the top tree, and I take that almost all the way to the end. So there is quite a variety in how you want to build your perks and which class sort of branch you want to choose. Each class also has several active skills you use while you're in combat. You can pick 3 of these to have at any given time, and you can change them as long as they are not in cooldown. And that even means if 2 of them are on cooldown and 1 of them isn't, you can go ahead and change the one that isn't if you wanted. I don't recommend doing it in combat though. Not usually the best idea to sort of change out your build mid-combat. Changing your active skills and changing your perks are totally free. You can do them as much as you want, anytime you want, except like I said, I recommend not doing it in combat. And this is actually really cool and fun because like I said, it kind of ties into the item system as you get different items that have different sort of perks on them that work well with certain powers or certain play styles. You may want to change how you're fighting. One thing I and a lot of people disagree with is the number of cutscenes. Pretty much in every review you listen to or read, they will probably mention how this is kind of an issue. There are way too many of them. They are supposed to be in there for mostly matchmaking, but I think most would rather just have it go to a blank loading screen and just wait, instead of having it do fade to black, cutscene for 3 seconds, fade to black, then you're in the different area. They get kind of annoying. Also, they tend to happen during boss fights or sort of phases in fights, so that can be really disruptive. You're in the middle of a fight, you kill a last guy, or you trigger a sort of phased event, and then boom, you're in the middle of a cutscene, and it's like, wait, what's going on? I was fighting 5 seconds ago. So that's kind of a really bad design decision. If you listen to my podcast ramblings about the demo, I mentioned how I didn't like the writing, and I think I finally figured out why I don't like the writing, especially for the main character. I previously mentioned that I thought it was that the lines were delivered flat and without a lot of emotion. And while that is true early game, that isn't so much the case later game, but I think really the main issue is that the character is written that they just don't care. Edgelord is a common phase for this kind of character, but the problem is if the protagonist doesn't care, the audience, in this case a player of the game, doesn't care either. It's fine for a character to not care about some things, but they must have clear goals and things they do care about, so that the audience, in this case the player, can care along with them. The main questline follows the protagonist trying to find the source of a mysterious signal in order to, in theory, shut it down and stop these anomalies from happening. But whenever the topic comes up about furthering this plot through much of the storyline, they often just respond with, and that's bad, right? I get that they were in cryo for a really long time, and so they don't kind of understand most of the current world that they're in, but you can't write a character in any media form who just doesn't care, or the audience equally will not care and not connect with that character. So I really think a lot of the writing choice was kind of a mistake. It does kind of pick up a bit and get better as you get deeper into the story, so it's not completely terrible all the time, but I do think it could be a lot better. The audio issues I mentioned in the beta are still the same. They don't sound right. There aren't enough sound layers, and the balance is off. Most people won't really notice, but I do notice. It doesn't feel quite right. Pretty much the only thing you'll really hear is the shooting if you're in combat, and if you're out of combat, it feels like there's only 1 or 2 tracks of audio, usually the main character and then the side character, and then just like there's no other sound. Where's the bass? Where's the surrounding noise? A lot of it just seems missing in most cases. It's not game breaking, it's not super terrible, it's not going to kill your enjoyment of the game. But I do think if they balanced the audio and made it a lot better, it would be a much more enjoyable experience. There also are some stupidly hard boss encounters, especially if you're playing Devastator like me, who doesn't have a huge damage output. But the game has up to 15 sort of difficulty levels. You'll probably get to around 8 or 10 by the time you finish the single player game. So if a boss is too hard or an area is too hard, feel free to turn that down. It does not at all affect your experience. It only affects the level of bad guys you are fighting, the level of loot which drops, and the maximum level your stuff you are wearing sort of counts as. If you turn a world tier down below a level of the gear that you are wearing, it won't unequip it or stop it from working or anything. It will just scale it down a little bit. So there's not a huge downside, or really any downside, to turning an encounter or the campaign just lower if you want to have an easier time with it, or it seems much harder than it should be for you. There are some technical issues in the game right now, which is a real shame. Late game, when I was running in DX12, I was getting pretty frequent crashes. It seems if you run in DX11, these issues go away. So if you have any kind of crashing or lockups, I would recommend you run it in DX11, at least on PC. I don't know if consoles can control this, probably not. But for PC, that is certainly an option. There are multiplayer connection issues. So playing with friends might not be super stable. I tried playing with somebody just last night quite a bit, and while it was pretty fun and reasonably enjoyable, there were times where I would see the monsters kind of sliding around, or I would go to press a power that was supposedly available, and it would be like, nope, that power is not available, nope. So, or I would hit a power, and the things would all of a sudden die because I was, I guess, behind slightly, so my game was catching up. So multiplayer is not as stable or as great as it certainly could be right now. The very highest end-game content, which is called expeditions, are kind of also not the greatest. First, they aren't super interesting. The ones that I have done, I've done maybe a quarter of them. They are on sort of a rotation, so you don't always get to see the ones you want to see. And some of them have minimum expedition level requirements. I think I've only unlocked to level 7 so far, and some of them require a certain amount or higher. But they kind of revolve around just kill all the things right now, which is not super interesting. I mean, it's fun, but how many times can you do that before you're like, okay, I would like to do something else? Because the campaign is full of all kinds of different various tasks. So the end game being basically boiling down to kill all the things, they're going to come at you, look out. Doesn't seem as interesting as it could be. Another huge issue is, since there is that issue of multiplayer weirdness, a lot of people are trying to play solo, but solo, if you die, even just once, boop, that's it. You have to restart the whole thing. Whereas in multiplayer, if you die, you have, I think, 1 or 2 self-reses you can use, plus a member of the party can come over and just, push the button, boop, and then you're up again and fighting. So it seems heavily imbalanced against soloers. Now, granted, it wasn't really designed as a solo game. They do intend you to play with friends. Even during the campaign, you can play up to you and 2 friends, or random people from the internet. And it even has crossplay, which again is another issue that's not quite working. But in theory, everybody across, I think it's PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Stadia can all play together. And also, one of the things that kind of disappoints me about Expeditions is they were advertised as sort of an expansion of the lore, and there would be a lot of interesting stuff going on that didn't take place in the campaign to help flush out and further explain what's going on in the world. And so far I haven't seen that, because not only is it just the enemies all kind of charge at you, but they're all time-based, so they want you to rush through them as fast as possible, which is kind of counter to something that should have interesting lore. So hopefully they will change how those are done and make them a lot more interesting and a lot more cool and lore-focused. I'm hoping the game does really well, and they do add, a bunch of this stuff in an expansion in the future. With all that being said, I do absolutely love the game, but these issues are really disappointing. If these are issues you're okay with and you can avoid and you would still enjoy it, I would highly recommend the game. This is the first one in a long time that has really good combat, cool, interesting powers, and just tons and tons and tons of customization in terms of loot and how you want your powers to work. It's just crazy amounts of customization. If you don't want to deal with the technical issues, maybe wait 2 or 3 months, maybe, until all of the sort of multiplayer and crashing issues get fixed and patched up. And again, I believe the demo is still up, so I think you can still get the demo and check that out and see if you might enjoy it for yourself.
Ahoy there, and welcome to the treasure chest. We gather to thank those who surrendered booty to the rabbit. I'm sure we can all agree we love a little booty now and then. Ha ha ha! The following be all the rapscallions that donated their booty.
We do be thinking a mysterious person who sent some pants. 3 cheers for pants. Hip hip, arr, hip hip, arr, hip hip, arr.
So that's it for this week's podcast. I sound pretty terrible to me. I don't know if I'll sound bad to anybody out there on the recording. I don't really feel super bad. It's just my nose and sometimes throat are plugged up with congestion, or I'm sneezing, or I'm sniffly. It's just not the best. I'm pretty tired too, a little bit extra hungry. It's just my allergies are going crazy, and no matter what I do, it kind of does not help. So hopefully I will not be suffering soon. And I don't know what I'll talk about next podcast, but I guess that will happen 3 weeks from now. And hopefully I'll see everybody then. Okay, thanks, bye. You have been listening to Rabbit's Ramblings. If you would like to see the show notes or feed the bunny by sending a donation, you can find the show website at www.rabbit.com/podcast/rabbitsramblings.html. When you type Rabbit's Ramblings, don't use a space. If you would like to send me an email, you can do so at rabbit@rabbit.com. If you like my page, you can also post on Facebook at rabbit.com. You can follow me on YouTube at rabbit.com. I have a page on Patreon at www.patreon.com/rabbit, RABB1T. You can set up a monthly recurring subscription there at a price point of your choice. Be sure to put the number 1 in place of I anytime you type rabbit. Rabbit's Ramblings is copyright Eric Stryker, using a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Derivatives License, 2021.